Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Proving Ground Circuit Qualifiers number 2. Today is a big day for our teams as it's their last chance to sneak into the playoffs. My name is Sierra Dawn. I'm your desk host for today. I am joined yet again with the ever so lovely RMC and the ever so wise Nova. First, how are you two doing? We'll go left to right here.
Left, so that's me first, right?
That'd be you first. Yeah, I guess middle to right. Close enough, right?
Yeah, I'm doing well here, and like you said, exciting game day, because it is the last day of groups here. Make it or break it moment here. I've got my sign ready to go up here behind me. Playoffs are eliminated. Now I have been told that it looks like I'm saying Bogged's going to make playoffs and Winthrop's going to get eliminated. I need to make this clear. That's not what I'm saying with this. That's just how it came out on the tweets there and on the messages. We don't know who's going where yet, and maybe I do favor Bog, maybe I don't. We'll find out later with the predictions.
And Nova, how are you doing? Welcome to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm really glad to obviously be a part of the Unified fam and being on the Academy stream, so I appreciate that. And I'm really glad to be watching this match as our first match to be on the desk for, so I'm definitely very excited.
Yeah, it should be a great match to start things off. And also, side note, RMC, you definitely look very biased there with your background, but still respect. I dig it. We do have to go look at the bracket overview, though, to see what stakes that we are going for today. This is going to be the playoffs, of course. Today's stream is going to be determining the last couple of teams looking to make it, but already, RMC, some really strong teams making it through.
Yeah, we did see, sort of the expected, 100 Thieves, Knicks making it through, no team, Immortals, AoE, and Taco all punching their tickets here. And as you can see, we already know who you're going to be playing against if you win. So here on the Academy stream, we do have Bogged versus Winthrop, playing to see who faces Immortals, AoE in the quarterfinals. And later on this evening, EG Prodigies versus Ginger Turmeric to face off against no team here.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting knowing how things are already shaking up for the most part, and we just get that last little desperation because these last teams try and make their way in. Group A and Group B are who are going to be following today, and it will be Bogged and Winthrop to start things off. Looking at Group A, Nova, this has been a really 2-0 all or nothing sort of mentality these teams have been having.
Yeah, I mean, when you're put into a group with 100 Thieves next, I think anyone kind of expects that there's going to be some 2-0s happening in that group. Definitely Bogged was a team that came in that I was kind of expecting maybe they would be the team to take a game off of 100 Thieves next, and obviously that didn't really end up working out that well. But Group A was, yeah, that's a tough group to be placed in. I felt bad for York University in that one.
Yeah, that one definitely, should I say, stings a little bit. But talking more about Group A, RMC, what do you think of these 2-0s? Do you think then that there's hope for Winthrop going into this, just with how these past weeks have been shaking up in this group?
I certainly hope so, Sierra, because 2-0s, they're not as fun to watch. And granted, some of the games have been close, but I would like to see a full series come through. It's worth noting that for both our matches today, they are rematches. Bogged and Winthrop have faced off, as we saw in the graphic before, and it was a 2-0 where Bogged managed to take it. And in that particular series, not particularly close. I'm hoping Winthrop have a little bit more in the tank here. They did look good in their win against York here, and maybe that's a good sign coming into today.
Yeah, I mean, every week and every day, these teams have a chance to, develop and get stronger and have that chance. It was 2-0 last time between this rematch, but, you can always hope for a little bit different. But we do have, I believe, a graphics as well to talk about our second matchup and just an overview of how our day is going to be looking up as these last couple of teams try to be making it. Oh, yeah, we got to go over to Group C and D. There's more teams trying to make it into playoffs. This is going over on Unified Live, but MC, what do you make of this?
It's the Maryville night here. Both Maryville teams playing over at Unified Live here. And it's it should be pretty exciting to watch here. Yeah, one of those, if anything, I think the Unified Live games might go the full 3. That side's actually a bit more messy to me. So definitely, hoping that we do get to catch a little bit of some of those games here and see how those pan out.
Yeah, that definitely should be a lot of fun. So that's all over on Unified Live. But the matchups that we're going to be focusing on for today's stream, starting it off, as we were talking about, it is going to be Bogged going up against Winthrop. And later on, it'll also be a rematch. Oh, sorry, we're going to talk about what's going on Unified Live. Maryville University going up against Supernova. Later on, we get EG Prodigies, Ginger Turmeric over here. It should be a lot of fun, but focusing more on the matchup that we're going to be seeing next, it's time to look over to the rosters, get a little familiar with the faces that we're going to be seeing for this RMC.
Yep, and by now we've seen these teams quite a few times on stream already. Of course, with Bogged here, a lot of veterans, a lot of experience, and we've seen them. They did have a good game too against 100 Thieves. Nyx fell short a little bit, but Winthrop here, they're an interesting roster. We've said it to death by now. You know, Frost Force coming back in for PGCQ2 versus PGCQ1, where they had Mordio here. And I do think there's still big questions for this Winthrop roster. Vex had an amazing pop-off game against York. Can they bring that same pop-off here to this matchup against Bogged?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question that we're really looking at going into this today. And even our head-to-head, to look further at that, it is going to be Inori from Bogged going up against Frost Forest. This one should be really interesting. Frost Forest, of course, is someone that we've been looking at, but hasn't quite had that game that we've been really looking for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Frost Force kind of has a cool advantage. He was obviously a part of C9 Academy, so I'm sure there's a lot of learning that he took away from that. So obviously he wasn't a part of Winthrop in the last PGOQ, but he's going into this roster with some experience behind him. Anori is definitely one of those players that you just kind of know his name. You just, in the past, he's been a player that's very consistent. He's very good. Kind of comes with the persona that people know that he's some competition that you have to take seriously. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens between these two. Who's going to be the more aggressive jungler? Who's going to be really making things happen in the early parts of the game? So I think the jungle is going to be a big focal point to see which team is going to be successful in today's match.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a really big thing to be looking at. So then, talking to the series over the whole, if we're talking about the fact that we're looking at this jungle, the fact that Bogged last time took a pretty strong dominant win over Winthrop, how do you think this one's really going to shake up now that the teams have had more chance to try and develop and maybe get a little more comfortable with their rosters?
I think there's two things for sure. If a team 2-0s, generally the team that is on the receiving end of that loss tends to have an advantage going into the next matchup. I don't know why that is, just in terms of experience in the amateur scene. That's what I've seen. It's probably more just because you're learning a lot more habits from the team that's kind of like dominating you in that kind of particular sense. So I really hope Winthrop, I know that they're majority player-led. I hope that they reviewed those matches. They kind of saw some maybe some habits coming out of Bogged in that particular series. And then the second thing is, I think Winthrop kind of goes through phases. They have particular times where they're just like really, really good, and then they just had like a week or two where they're just like not doing that great. And so we kind of saw them come out of some rough matches in the past couple of weeks. I know in the CeeLo scene they've also kind of had some rough losses. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they're able to break that today going into today's match. Honestly, this could really go either way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and especially with the point that Winthrop sort of goes through phases as well. We've seen Kenji in that support role, willing to switch away from those enchanters towards the hook champions in their last series against York. Looked a lot better there, and the adaptation as well. When we did see Avano in this last matchup, just playing only the Zoe, and now they're moving away from that Zoe as well to champions that, even if you fall behind, cancel up a lot of impact. So definitely expecting a stronger showing from Winthrop this round.
And then for Winthrop to see that stronger showing, what is the one thing that you would really like to see come out that we haven't really touched on to try and get that victory? Because it's really just do or die for these teams. Obviously, taking a loss previously to this team, there has to be some sort of adjustment going into it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for Winthrop, a lot of the success comes from draft. Like, if they're picking things that are very comfortable for them, if they're picking things that they're getting a counter, particularly in the top lane, I see is really one thing that they focus on. They're really generally put in a position where they feel comfortable. They can kind of take the lead in the front force of that game. So it'll just be kind of interesting to see like what it is that their plan is. Are they going to be more of like an early game focused team in their comp? Like, I know that they really like the Ezreal for Vex. Are we going to be seeing an Ezreal Karma that kind of plays to be more dominating in the bot lane, right? Are we going to be looking for the red side? I'm not even sure what the side matchups are going to be particularly for today. So I don't know. It'll be, we don't make our predictions after draft. We make predictions obviously before draft. So it's kind of unfortunate. But if Winthrop really does get their way in terms of the champion select, I think things can really go in their favor.
Sure, and I think we do have confirmation that for game one at least, it will be Bogged on blue side going into it here. So yeah, we'll see how that changes things. I do agree. Mabud has been a really strong performer for Winthrop, so counter pick there is going to be really important to them. In the last time these two teams met up, Mabud was the only player who was consistently winning his lane for the side of Winthrop, so big eyes up there. But I do think while Mabud has been good, it's not necessarily been enough to carry them over the finish line. So the person I'm kind of watching a little bit more for Winthrop the series will be the bot lane, Vex specifically, because Vex had an amazing game too against York on a Jinx, and you kind of need to pop off. You need that AD carry, especially in the current meta right now. Vex is probably their best shot at carrying these mid to late game team fights.
All right, well, going further about talking about Mabud, despite the fact that the team can't rely fully that these can't be the person to quite carry us, he's definitely been someone who has been showing up, and we do have a clip too to really just kind of signify that. RMC, if you want to be talking us through this.
Yeah, so this was their first game against York Lions, and I've talked a lot about the second game, but the first game was really not so great for Winthrop. They were struggling. You can see they're 2-9 at this point in the game, but Mabud was really the big force that kept them through the game on the Tryndamere, as he has in multiple series. Yes, he's not quite able to fully carry, 1v5, but he gets them pretty darn close with the, 1v4s all the time. And that's why I'm looking for someone else to push them over the line, but they still need Mabud as the foundation, I think, to even get to that tipping point here.
It's fair. And then, Nova, as a coach, do you have any thoughts on that, or?
No, I'm good.
You're good? You're like, I believe, I see it?
Yeah, I feel like RMC pretty much covered it. Mabud, as long as he's playing his comfort, as long as he's in a particularly good matchup, which, I mean, it sounds like Bogged took the blue side. I don't know whose choice it was for that, but Winthrop, I feel like, are going to be pretty happy with that. They get the advantage. I'm sure that they're going to save the counter pick for the top lane. And I'm sure we're probably going to see some flex picks like Graves banned out, and the Gwen banned out that way. Mabud really has the particular opportunity to get a good counter pick in that matchup. But it is like what you said, Mabud can only do so much. It is going to be also up to the consistency of the other players. Is Vex going to be able to pick the Ezreal and the Jinx and really perform like we see Vex do in a lot of games? Are we going to be able to see Ivano and Frost Force work together in particular circumstances, right? Wins are not just all based on one player. So it'll be interesting to see what Winthrop is able to pull out.
I mean, it'll also be interesting to see what Bogged does bring to the table, because we have seen them be strong in the past, and they have a roster full of strong players. The next clip is actually going to be about Benji, fantastic ADC, and honestly, could be a potentially really good matchup for him this time, RMT.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why we're looking at Benji a little bit here for Bogged is, first of all, he performed the best in their series against 100 Thieves next year, despite, the whole team kind of suffering around him. Benji did have, plays where he did manage to kind of survive and put out the damage, and we're talking about the Ezreal for Vex here, but the Ezreal for Benji looked pretty darn good as well in that particular series. Not to mention the last time they matched up, it was the Inori Tuesday show, but Benji didn't pressure Vex sufficiently, I think, in lane, and Vex had the chance for comebacks. If Bogged really want to just, end this game, make sure there's no way in for Winthrop, I think some attention to that bot lane might be in order. Make sure that Vex doesn't even have that opportunity to carry, and then you can let the Inori Tuesday show, come in a bit later, be that nail in the coffin, as it were.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I believe that's a strong reason why Bogged was able to take that win the last time around. So be interested to see how Winthrop adjusts to that. But we also do have to go to our predictions, our caster predictions. I love tracking through these and second guessing myself a little bit, seeing how everyone else has been voting. I know everyone has some thoughts on this series and really strong in favor of Bogged, but the fact that Desirux has been voting a different way has me second guessing myself a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like this is pretty standard from what I expected going into this. I think a lot of people kind of see that Winthrop has maybe been in kind of a flunk recently. And then, of course, Bogged coming off of a great series with Benji performing the way that he did. I think it is pretty standard for this to be a 2-0. But with that being said, I mean, this is still very much a game that you want to be watching, because they can go either 2-0 either way. It can even go to a game of 3. There's just like no safe prediction to be made about this particular match. So if there's going to be an upset for today, I definitely think this could be the one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Desirux, there's a reason why he's number 1 right now in the predictions. He's the king, right? 15 predictions. So yeah, he's predicting Winthrop. Expect that, but I do believe the one prediction he did get wrong might have involved Winthrop and Bogged the first time round. So maybe my memory is wrong here. So I respect Desirux, but I respectfully don't think he's going to be right tonight.
Ooh, That sounds a little bit of fighting words, honestly, coming out here. So, seem to be really changing from your predictions, but we do have to get to our own live desk predictions. We'll start with Nova. I want your thoughts on, of course, your prediction and why you decided to go that way.
Yeah, so obviously I do coach UST, so that's a collegiate team, so we're pretty familiar with Winthrop. They're both actually in the South along with us, so we do get to see them pretty often. Just last week we did end up competing against them, and I think that was really the first kind of sign that I felt like maybe they were kind of going into one of these weeks where things are a little bit rough for them. So just simply based on that, and then obviously with Bogged's performance recently, I am going to go ahead and say 2 with Bogged.
All right. That's definitely, I mean, this whole group has been 2-0s, and I see we're not quite strayed from it quite yet. RMC, do you have different thoughts on this, or?
Sadly no. I think I went the same way here. It's been 2-0 this entire group, and maybe it's recency bias, but Bogged won the last one 2-0. I do think Winthrop's improved a lot, and I am expecting a closer series. I just don't think it's going to be quite close enough to take the thing just yet. And once again, I need to remind you guys, what you see up here, this is not necessarily true. It just happened to be the way this particular vote went.
You don't have to lie to us. Are you sure? Now that we see that your prediction's on screen, are you sure there wasn't some sort of little bias in making that?
I'm going to say no, because I don't actually remember which side EGP and Ginger Turmeric are on for the graphics, so I don't want to mess up my next set of predictions. But yeah, so no, but still, Bogged to go.
I mean, we'll see later on in the stream if there's a bias there. We'll have to put that one on hold. For myself, I went with the group for this one. I went 2-0 in Bogged's favor. I mean, teams can improve over the weeks, but that's also going to be the same about their competitors. And Bogged has been putting up a strong showing. And I mean, I just think history is going to repeat itself a little bit here. Though I would love to see a good fight, because the fact that we haven't really been talking about 2-1s whatsoever, when the other group B is full of them, is a little much. But then we're getting closer to our casters, but not quite yet. And I would love to talk about this draft and just kind of what we've seen in past weeks, because it was said that Winthrop, this could be a really big win con for them, Noah, if they can just get the draft that they potentially want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too familiar with how either of these teams draft. I think a couple things that we did talk about was obviously the Ezreal Prowler for both teams. I don't think it'll be something that's contested, but maybe it's something that we'll see come out. I mean, obviously Winthrop being on the red side, a big takeaway from that is that they're going to have the counter pick that they can save on 5 pick, and I just know for a fact that that's probably just going to end up going to Mabud. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize that. I think the really big takeaway from this match is both teams we talked about Winthrop kind of having weeks where things were a little bit rough for them. I mean, Bogged also has moments like that, right? When they first announced that they were going to be entering into the scene, I said that I thought they were going to be one of those teams that kind of takes a game off of 100 Thieves next, maybe, takes a series off of IMT AoE, and then we kind of saw their open qualifier performance, and that was a little bit questioning, right? And so I kind of think that was also maybe one of their moments where they just had like a little bit of a rough week. So again, Winthrop, they can definitely be somebody to take away this match, and I think that they are off to a right track, or they're on the right track, considering that they're already starting up with that red side.
RMC, what about you? Are you same page? Any additional things to add to that?
Yeah, I want to spring off the point, where Nova's saying that, yeah, Winthrop can still take this. I think our predictions on the analyst desk make it sound like Bogged are just, it's an easy 2-0 here. I mean, as much as we want to promote a hashtag We Are Unified here on the analyst desk, but realistically, I mean, Winthrop can win games. It's not so much that we don't think Winthrop can win a game. It's, I think, more just that we're expecting Bogged to perform particularly well. But if there's anything I've learned from watching Winthrop, it's that you can't count them out. Every time it comes down to clutch, they pull out madness. And that's what I'm kind of hoping that we get to see a little bit here. And going back to that head-to-head, right? Like, I'm still looking at the jungles to bring out a bit of that madness. If there's anything I think that maybe teams can take advantage of from Bogged, it's that Inori likes to power farm, and he's not that strong and early ganker for the team for the most part. So Frost Forest, you pick something that goes early, right? We've seen a lot of Xin Zhao, a lot of J4, a lot of Lee Sin. You take champions like that and you try and get some volatility into the early games. If you can get your lanes ahead, we talked about Vex, we talked about Mabud here. Mabud doesn't even need you to gank his lane to get ahead, so you can just bounce between Vex and Ivano for the most part here. If you can get one of them ahead as well, maybe Winthrop can, pull an upset here. I call it an upset, but just pull out a win somehow, and maybe you break the mental of Bogged as well. This group is a 2-0 group, so maybe if Winthrop can win game 1, it's a 2-0 for Winthrop as well.
Yeah, that's what you have to be going for at this point. We know that there is the strong individuals on Winthrop, but last quick point, and we're going to make it quick. Frost Forest, it's been a little bit down lately. Do you think this could be the game that he shows up? And if so, is this going to be the difference maker, RMC?
I pray so. I really, you know what? Yes, I'm going to go out there and say, yes, I believe Frost Forest is going to show up this game. Because that's what I really want to see.
All right. Well, before we send over to the casters, reminder, if you want to get joined in on the conversation, whether it's your predictions, who you're looking out for, you can tweet using the hashtag #WeAreUnified. You've heard our thoughts. You've heard our predictions. We need a couple more people predicting in Winthrop's favor. So get involved in the conversation. Now, to get involved, it's time to look over to our wonderful casters, Deserex and Smax, for match number 1.
All right, hold up a minute. RMC is a complete bully, is a terrible person. He's right, though. I mean, my only misguess was the Winthrop one. I still hate him. I feel attacked, but welcome to the casting desk. My name is Eric Deserex Beltran. Joining me on the desk, of course, Sam Smax Hyde. How are you doing today, Smax?
I'm good. You look good in that crown, by the way. It's a nice accessory for you. It fits your kingly behavior. I'm really excited for this day. We got the knockouts. We got everything riding on this last day of the group. It's gonna be good.
I am personally excited for this one because we all know Deserex's favorite collegiate team, and it is Winthrop University. And I'm going to start the conversation right there. They've had a fantastic journey since we've seen them start off over in, fall UPL 2021. They've had their struggles. They've been shaping, they've been mending, but they've been showing up big so far. I mean, the last circuit qualifiers really showed you what Winthrop can do when you think of them as an underdog, as they had a top 4 finish. Now they're well-rounded. They play a lot towards my bud. They're coming here to slog it out with someone who's already given them an L in Bogged.
Yeah, it's no secret that they did get that top 4, and it's going to be a bit harder for them to do it this time around, especially considering what you just mentioned. They have to go through Bogged to even get to the playoffs to begin with, and they did already take that 0-2 against them previously. I think their growth over the 2 weeks in between then and now has been really big, and I do think it's actually going to be a lot closer this time around, though. So, if there's any time for this group to have a 2-1 game, I think it's going to be this one.
And it's definitely quite the test for them because they already have the defeat against Bogged that we had earlier in the group stages. But in this matchup, it is a lot of experienced players on Bogged. Even Hooks was talking about a little bit. Really, you can see this team as like 5 league boomers walk into a tourney. What happens? And to be fair, they still have the chops. They're showing up big. D Shao is someone who hasn't played for 2 or 3 years now. Took time off to be a coach. Now shows up, return to the roster. Here we go. The rest of the squad start showing up and bringing in these great performances alongside Honori, Tuesday, who keep roaming out of lane and putting pressure all over the Rift.
And with all those years of experience, they also have a lot of experience playing together as well. This is a group of friends that all know each other from previous teams and ladder experiences. They all just wanted to come together and make sure that they get to compete in Champions Queue. They already achieved that. Now, the only thing left for them to do is see just how far they can push it. And considering what they did to Winthrop last time, they are, and what the desk said, actually, it seems like they are a bit favored in this next match. And while I may have predicted that Bogged were going to win on that graphic from before, I did forget that I was casting with the one and only Deserex on a Winthrop match. So I might have to be a flip-flopper here, honestly. I think Winthrop have the passion behind it.
Yeah, I will just throw it out there. That one game that I did not guess right, I wasn't casting Winthrop for that one. They get the Deserex buff here. But while we set up for that game, we do have to take a quick moment to take a break, having a little bit of technical difficulties. Once we get those sorted out, we'll head right into the draft of Winthrop University versus Bogged Esports. Welcome back, everyone, to the Proving Ground Circuit Qualifiers number 2. Technical difficulties now out of the way, and we're ready to start this matchup, Winthrop University versus Bogged. Now, these teams have gone at it before. It's one of the things that was brought up on the analyst desk. And I want to go back to that game because in game number one, Smacks, what it really came down to was just solid performance in every single lane. Game number two, excuse me, out of Bogged. Whereas game number one, a majority of that control, that early game control, mid game control, was over to Winthrop. For the first 27 minutes, they did have a gold lead in that game one.
That's definitely true. I think for Winthrop, they had a draft strategy that really suited their comfort coming off of the last tournament because they had Zoe, Ezreal, Karma. Those were the cornerstones of that draft strategy for the bot side of the map. A lot of range champions, and that does give you just so much power to start off a game. But the problem is that they didn't quite have the same on the top side that they usually did for all of that, where they didn't have Mortia's assassin playstyle, things like the Kha'Zix that he would throw in there to really capitalize off of all of this range poke that Ezreal, Karma, Zoe were providing. It was Frostforest's new style to this team where he's playing these melee champions that want to farm a lot. So I think that really was a thorn in Winthrop's side, and it was a big thing, a big reason why they looked so uncomfortable when it came to closing that game. So that's going to be something that they need to adjust to.
And this is going to be a wild shape up now. One of the things that we saw come out of Bogged was they really focused hard on the bans on the top side towards Mabud. One of the issues that came up with this game is due to some of the rules here and 10 minutes behind scheduled. Bogged are going to be losing their first 3 bans, so they can't target out the top laner of Winthrop like they did last time.
It's a pretty big issue, honestly, because we've seen that Winthrop have had Tryndamere banned against them in 3 of their 4 games, and the one game that it wasn't banned away, it was first picked by Winthrop on blue side. Now, they are in red, so Bogged has the opportunity, if they really want to be a nuisance, to first pick Tryndamere and take a page out of Winthrop's book. That would be absolutely hilarious.
This is going to leave a lot up for this first B1, but more importantly, the rotation on R2 and R1 should be pretty considerable for Winthrop. Ryze is already a champion that comes into mind that's still left on the table. It was a pretty big pick for Tuesday in that game number 1 and game number 2. He was able to get out from lane a lot thanks to Inori and impact the bottom lane, impact the top lane. We'll see if they're willing to go for that again, try and give that repeat of the Ryze, or take away that Tryndamere that we were talking about earlier from Mabud.
That'd be so funny. I kind of hope that they do it just to see what would happen, but I think you're 100% right on the Tuesday call. And look at that. That is exactly what they lock in. I think the biggest thing for Bogged has been their movement around the rift with Inori and Tuesday. Ryze really does a lot to help them out with that. So if they do want to go for that strategy, I would really like it here. And they worked really well specifically with those things at attacking bottom lane. But Vex is going to be playing the ever so powerful Jinx to combat that.
And I really like that Frost took the Volibear. It's something that's in Inori's wheelhouse that Inori's really good at. When he's on that Volibear, one of the most prominent things that I see from him is the pressure he's able to apply when Winthrop are in between rotations. He tends to catch out players during those situations, but being on the Hecarim is an enjoyable pick as well. It plays very well to a style of being an excellent engager who breaks through defensive lines with ease.
Feels like absolute comfort for Bogged with those first 2 picks. This is a bit of a turn off into a little bit of a weird corner, though, with the Kai'Sa. Bogged really committing to this melee playstyle here. Full dive on the Kai'Sa. This is not a champion that is ever going to outrange the Jinx or match her in a team fight. You really do have to use that killer instinct to get into the backline and be a disruptor for Benji. So that is going to be a bit tricky for Bogged in this game. There's Tryndamere.
It's finally locked in. Mabud is going to be playing the Tryndamere. Now, Mabud has been a champion we've been talking about a lot because he's been so good for Winthrop. He has an incredibly diverse champion pool. He's been a dependable player, consistently leaves lane with the gold and EXP lead. And that is quite the threat when you're staring down the top lane and seeing a Tryndamere on the opposite side.
Yeah. In my opinion, Mabud has won 4 out of 4 lanes that he has played in this tournament so far, and 2 of those were against Dishao, who he's playing up against right now. Dishao will have counterpick, as Tryndamere did want to be selected very early on, so it doesn't get stolen away by the bans. But I believe that Mabud is going to have a lot of confidence and a lot of skill in this lane, as shown last week when he just fully first picked it on blue side.
Now for Winthrop, what do they need to really start closing out this composition? You have a lot of side lane control, a lot of tower dive. The Jinx can come online quite early into the mid game once you get excited and start popping off. See what they're going for. Right for the Silas for the mid lane. As that gets locked in, that leaves their final pick to be support.
The good thing about the Silas is that it is another frontline champion for this Jinx. When we saw the first day of groups draft for Winthrop, they were really scattered on whether or not they could be a solid frontline for Vex, so he could actually do things in the late game, or if they were trying to just burst people down one by one. Silas is pretty good at doing both of those things. He's a big nuisance in that front line, and he does have a lot of burst as well, depending on which ultimate he goes for. So I think this is a really flexible champion to lock in alongside Vex, and you can see the wheels turning in their heads as far as what they're thinking about in this draft.
And this is some pretty nasty engage for Bogged as they grab Leona. Something Hooks has been playing quite a bit in this tournament so far. That gets locked in. It does work decently well with the Kai'Sa. It feels that old position that we saw before the Kai'Sa-Alistar pairing, but the final lock-in is the spiciest, the Pantheon for Bogged.
I don't think that we've seen this champion a single time in this tournament or the last one, Deserex. It's been a very, very long time, but it's really strong in that lane, and it can do a lot against a champion like Tryndamere because you have that point-and-click stun. And really, if you look across the board at Bogged, they've got a lot of those. They've got Leona, they've got Ryze, they've got Hecarim. Every single one of these champions has some form of crowd control that you can only miss if you click the wrong guy. So that's really useful against a champion like Tryndamere that is just going to mow you over if you don't stop him somehow.
And it plays towards style so well, which, you know, they tend to scale up and go for that late game 5v5. That's what really got them ahead in that game number 1 against Winthrop the first time around, where they were so far behind, scaled up, got the 5v5 going, won the game off on the later hand of it. It's still the same style, right? It's traditional, it's cut and dry, it's not that hard to execute. It is a Bogged composition, I feel like.
Yeah, the only issue there is that range. Like I said about the Kai'Sa, you do need to dive in with the rest of your team if you're going to be effective in this game, because you're going to have to outrange Jinx or outrun Tryndamere, which you can do by just diving right in. So for Benji, he's going to have his work cut out for him. He's got a lot of setup to do that, though, and you can see, just like you said, Deserex, all these champions really do have that one goal in mind. So I think if Bogged's composition can really come online, if they can put this to good use, then it'll be one of the cleanest games we've seen of them this whole tournament.
But if Winthrop can get their way into this one in the early game, this is a hard composition to try and temper with the way Winthrop have played their mid games in the past. You know, Kenshi is going to be on extra duty to try and defend Vex. If Vex can stay alive, we've seen what happens when he pops off in the mid game. We've seen what happens when his positioning is protected. He will clean up the map, and that is something that is going to be on Bogged's mind.
And for Winthrop, you can see that they know this, and you can see that they've adjusted to this as well from the last 2 weeks of gameplay. Like I was saying, in the first time these teams went head-to-head, Winthrop was picking a lot of range champions. They're going with that same style that I mentioned, Zoe, Ezreal, Karma. Everyone's melee except for Vex in this composition. So they are really trying to just get in front of this guy, remove all obstacles so that he can get excited and keep shooting those rockets all game long. So Winthrop is really dumping a lot of resources into this player who has been performing so well this year.
Now, I want to know where the attention of Inori is going to be placed in these lanes. Mabud is always going to be a threat. He's, as we talked about earlier, he lanes really well, and it's something you want to temper. But the focus that we've seen from many teams in the past against Winthrop is to focus into the mid lane, try and take down Ivano. He is someone who doesn't respond that well with pressure. His early laning has been exploited in the past, but I will give credit to Winthrop in that they have tried to punish teams who go for that playstyle of just camping onto Ivano.
That's something that Bogged really can do in this game, where they have that the rune prison to make sure that Ivano doesn't bounce around as Silas's tend to do. You can really be quite lethal with this Ryze Hecarim duo. And this is something that Bogged has done quite a bit in their other games too. They're really familiar with Ryze Hecarim specifically. But Deserex, the big thing in this particular draft is that they have that in every single lane. They can just stun somebody and let Hecarim just charge through and get a whole lot of lane pressure through that. You can see that they have just an immense amount of early game bridge champions to get Inori to that late game, so he can be that disruptor onto Vex. And if that is going to happen through mid lane, so they can exploit the inconsistencies that we've seen sometimes from Ivano and Frost Forest, then so be it. But this draft is so lethal because of that flexibility.
Bogged, hitting the map right now. I just love how much dive they have, how much they can follow up together. You were talking about the Kaisa, Killer Instinct. Great tool to get back there onto the backline, trying to assassinate Vex. Inori will be a great tool alongside the Pantheon and Dishao. So many ways to really just dive onto this backline. It should be an interesting match for Bogged once they do get towards that team fight phase, going around those neutral objectives.
We know that both of these teams really aren't too keen on giving a lot of resources up to the top lane, especially not Bogged, who has sort of just let Dishao be a big weak side player, and he's had some really solid flanks in the games that he's played as well. So it's been an effective strategy. I'm just not certain if it will still be when he's playing Pantheon. This champion really does feel like it needs to have an early lead to have those really effective flanks later on, apart from perhaps an ultimate. But again, if you're not ahead, an ultimate might just lead to your demise.
And there's always that scary reality, right? That if you man drop at the wrong time, that Mabud is just going to take everything in your lane for free.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Leaving that Tryndamere alone, if he's unchecked, if he's grabbing plates into this early game, it's a lot of pressure for the side lanes for Bogged to have to control.
Bud has been spamming the hull breaker as well, so you know your hull is going to get broken if you use that Pantheon ultimate somewhere else. You're 100% right on that one. Oh boy, and they both have Ignite too, so you know there's going to be some volatility, whether the jungles come or not. That's it's a scary prospect for sure.
Will be a Corrupting Potion start, as well as the Biscuits for Dishao. So he has some good sustainability, but yeah, sustain's the name of the Tryndamere, right? You build up that gauge, you pop the Q, and you can heal up and stay in that lane for quite some time.
Hopefully for Mabud, what he can do. Both junglers clearing up to that side of the map, so we're going to have to see if they can really make an effective showing here. Mabud does push in the lane a little fast. He's not quite level 3, so the wave does crash a bit before Frost Forest actually shows up, but he does get to use this time to drop a ward and actually find out where Inori is exactly. And that ward not only spots the Hecarim, but also tells him if he's coming through that path when he needs to get out of there.
Gives a lot of relief towards the bot lane of Winthrop, who are pretty heavily shoved in, have priority down there. Vano, now knowing where Inori is, feeling confident to go for this gank. Frost Forest trying to set up. Flash available for Tuesday. A little bit low on mana. Flash forward.
Ooh.
Holding him down. Locking him down. Not enough damage is there, or is it? So close. Frost falls. First blood to Tuesday. And he wants to make it too. Pops him in the back. Gives him a thumbs up and says, thank you for the free gold.
Oh no, Frost Forest and Ivano, they landed all of their spells, they landed all of their crowd control, but Tuesday with the laning runes of the Time Warp Tonic with his Corrupting Potion has just enough sustain to flash out and survive alongside First Blood and double buffs. This is doomsday for Winthrop's early game.
Ooh, and here's one thing about Bogged. All that experience means they know how to transfer an advantage, and they're trying to do that towards the top side. Mabud in a lot of trouble as Frost Forest shows up, flashing through. Mabud does not have the ult, so he doesn't have a chance to live, but he does have a chance to get a return kill, and the same thing's going to be true as Inori goes down. Frost Forest gets it, and out of nowhere, Bogged bite off way more than they could chew, giving up 3 kills. Goodness gracious, it's all falling apart.
Oh man, the turntables right away as Kenji is so low! Flashed on! He's dead!
We were expecting a bloodbath, and it continues into the bot lane. Kenji falls, Vex runs away, but the Zenith Blade is going to catch him, is going to force him to burn that flash. Good chunky minion wave to try and defend him there, but bloodshed, 3 kills both ways just 4 minutes in.
Oh, and that lane is not great for Vex either. But we're going to see the aftermath of that one after we watch this play yet again. Bogged got first blood in mid lane, but up in top, they're not quite so lucky. The turret damage is so strong this early into the game. And if I'm Ivano here after this kill, I'm typing in all chat, buff transfer complete. Double buffs over to the Silas.
And that's a kill onto my bud. That's an assist onto my bud. After a pretty ambitious tower dive being really shown as Frost was able to get up there. They were expecting that they could get it fast and get out in time before Mabud can really do anything. Mabud, smart with the flash, smart with his positioning, buys enough time for that tower to do its work. And now, picking up some gold, rewarded for his troubles.
I was mentioning in that bottom lane that the wave was pretty rough for Vex. He did actually stay around for a little while longer, but you can see that Kenji did have to help him out. So he is still cleaning up the scraps on the bottom side of the rift. Meanwhile, Hook's on the move. Really like this extra time that he's acknowledged that he has, moving up to this top lane, and they actually find the Tryndamere again.
Going after Mabud. Gets pushed back by the charge. Inori holding him down. And you can see the focus. We really hyped up Mabud as this game did start up. Bogged are aware of that. They are aware that he's on one of his best champions, so they're going to focus him down.
That was a really, really good tempo transition from Bogged. They noticed that Kenji was down in that bottom lane. He could not possibly roam, and Hooks used that time so well to get up to that top lane and cancel all the momentum of Mabud. As you said, Winthrop knows that this is his signature champion. He's performed so well on it. And Bogged know this as well. They shut him down yet again. Really nicely played.
Now Winthrop are going to use that play that was made earlier, transfer their positioning over towards this bottom side to get easy prio onto this Drake and grab the first Drake of the game. Vex and Kenji have been doing a good job of at least shoving this in despite the slight hiccup that they did have earlier. Making the best of the bad situation, Infernal goes over to Winthrop.
You do still have that priority on the bottom lane, as I mentioned, for Kenji. This is just really good ping-pong back and forth of acknowledging where the supports are, because they are playing a lot in terms of the crowd control in this early game. Leona, I mean, speaks for herself with all the crowd control, but Braum as well, being that front line and having the Winter's Bite can be really devastating. So wherever those champions go in this early game is where these teams want to make these plays. Not to mention Frost Forest on the Volibear is getting close to level 6, but he's alright with delaying it just a little bit for Ivano to get the blue buff.
Tuesday. He's itching to roam out right now. He has the Realm Warp ready and available as he goes from one side of the river to the other, one side of the river to the other, constantly threatening that Realm Warp. That's the thing about Tuesday. That's what we saw. That's what we've seen in this entire tournament. His presence on the Rift, he just wants to shove, he wants to get free, he wants to get kills.
Rise has a very easy time doing that against a champion like Silas. Very melee-oriented, not a lot of wave clear until later on, but it's not later on quite yet. And even with blue buff, you can see Tuesday is still much faster on the draw and can move around the Rift, as you just said. This time is making his way over to this Rift Herald that Inori's already started up, and Bogged will retaliate that first Drake with a Rift Herald of their own. Gold lead's still in their favor. You'd expect that one to stay there with these turret plates they're going to gather.
Roaming out Hooks over towards his top side. Very preemptive measures coming out of Bogged in this early game. Winthrop have a very strong early game, so getting leads here for Bogged is ways to guarantee that this game not going to go too long, that you're not going to have that many worries. You have some good scalers with you. We talked about the Rise already. 2-1-1, CSing so well. Been walking out of lane many a time. Now Kenji onto this top end. Xiao just waiting, doesn't realize he's there.
It's always a lot harder to make on Braum compared to Leona, and especially without a jungler here. It feels like Kenji a little desperate, but we'll see if it works.
That was really good timing on the mocking shout. Now stunned up, locked down. Jashao, he gets taken down by my bud. Brute force. The Undying Rage comes in. Will pop a heal. Kenji now providing that defense with the winner's bite. Slows out Inori, and my bud gets a second kill of the game in the top side.
I stand corrected, Deserex. Kenji is a lot smarter than I am, as it turns out. The exhaust, the Winter's Bite, all of that
Chicken.
utility on top of D Shao, and the chicken. As you said, the Mocking Shao doing so much work. And all those slows are enough to take down D Shao. He did, for what it's worth, slow him down ever so slightly by popping this E. It did take a lot of damage, so you can't be too mad about it. But still, it's more slows in his wake that led to him dying.
Good movement coming out of Kenji. Didn't really see it coming, to be honest. Waiting up there for so long. I'm sure Deshao wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting my bud to get the timing so perfectly for that Mocking Shout to enable that first slow, which pretty much set up the chain of CC. So now my bud gets that crit cloak and 3 long swords, returns to lane bloodthirsty.
You know, it's really funny. The timing of Tryndamere ultimate is like the exact opposite of the timing of Cassio. So my bud, you know, he'd be really good at Tryndamere, but he'd be absolutely terrible using Cassio for the ultimate, right? That's how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you could. Cassio's been in every lane now, so hey, it's something you got to watch on. Ooh, flash burnt out from Kenji as Nori catches him out in rotation. Nori, one of the experts, is that as he grabs the scuttle.
Nori and Hooks are moving around the rift together this entire time. I really like these movements, and you can see that they're actually getting a lot more resources into their jungler than Winthrop are. That's actually where most of the gold lead lies, and just a lot more camps on Hecarim. A very large win condition for Bogged. As I said, they have not a lot of range because they did buy in for this assassin-style marksman in the Kaisa, but where they make up for that is all this dive threat, and dives become so easy if your Hecarim feels confident enough to go forward and be that front line.
Oh, this is shades
Whoa.
of what we had seen before in the first series. Just straight up going for the dive in the lane. There's the man drop, but the Glacial Fissure stops Deshao. Ivano will get a kill, but out comes Shelly. They're looking to take down the mid lane, but the Rocket will take down Deshao. Inori on retreat. The charge is still going to go through. It will not finish off the Herald. Ivano gets low. An attempted dive. They needed to get a Nori in the mid lane before attempting that. It bites them in the backside.
Yeah, Nori needed to be there. D-Shao was a bit later than Hooks initiated as well. They get punished so heavily. Staying in the gold due to that Rift Herald that I mentioned before. It was sent through that mid lane. That turret is very close to dead. The Bogged lose a couple of members for a dive that was a bit miscalculated.
Ooh, going golden. Frost Forest dodges a lot of damage in that process, but he doesn't have an ultimate. He doesn't have a flash. No chance to stay alive. Cleave down. That kill going over to Tuesday, his 3rd of the game.
That's a solid kill. It will mean the Bogged get this dragon for themselves. Get to watch this dive one more time. I didn't even see the Jinx Rocket clean this up at the end. I didn't even see it coming. It's too fast. But Hooks, I believe he tanks the turret because his ignite is still ticking. So he walks out of range, but then still is tanking it afterward because there was one more ignite tick. So unfortunate there for Hooks. It was the reason that he ended up falling.
And a smart move out of Bogged. It was mentioned before, they do a lot of plays in between objectives, trying to catch out Winthrop in rotation. They just did it with Frost Forest, snaring him down, getting the kill onto him. That's Mountain Drake going over Bogged, evening that up 1-1 apiece. Attention coming towards the spot side as Kenji wrapping around, trying to set up a potential dive onto Benji.
Winter's Bite, like a couple of turret shots, not actually fully committing to that one. Does look like Vex used his ultimate before, so that's the reason that Benji is low, didn't actually have it to fully clean off that kill in the end. But speaking of Vex, I do want to highlight that Winthrop, despite losing out on the early game pretty tragically, have brought their win conditions up to a pretty solid lead.
Well, here we go, a tower dive. My bud gonna lead it with the Undying Rage. It is easy. My bud walks away. Tuesday going to show up, try and get some revenge for his fallen top laner. Can't snare down Frost Forest just yet, but gets him down to half health. Still trying to continue the play. Anori is there to back up. Ivano coming from the wings, has the Onslaught of Shadows, is going to use it. Anori tries to return it, but now Anori's low, gets cleaved down. Ivano grabs that kill, but Ivano with a good chunk of healing. There's still a lot of damage that can come out of Tuesday, and low health bars for Winthrop. Sidestep coming out. Can Tuesday survive? He's going for the outplay. One more auto Tuesday. A thumbs up and a shutdown found. Damn it away as he gets the play in the top lane.
Tuesday with the movement, dodges out on that last abscond abduct as we get to watch this dive yet again. It's just been a day of dives already, Deserex, and we have so many games after this one too. The dive's clean for Bogged. He gets so much damage off and tanks the turret with his ultimate, but there's just no way for Frost Forest to escape this, and despite the flank being really solid for Ivano, health bars are just way too low. They don't have the cross-map artillery support from the Jinx rocket this time around, and Bogged is really questioning whether or not he wants to dive in on this rise. Does so eventually, and, well, it's just not quite the right decision with Tuesday's movement. Look at this. Ooh.
There were so many small things in this. There was like 3 different things that that Tuesday dodged. If one of them went through, the first being the Onslaught of Shadows, which didn't land to him, he was down in that fight.
Yeah.
Those small little plays, the game of inches, he wins it.
He's got 2 items now because of it. That is a very big rise on the Rift right now. He actually didn't have a tier before that. He just fully purchased Archangels. You can see because it has 9 stacks right now, so that's absolutely hysterical. In this bot side, Winthrop trying to set up for a dive. They have Leona ultimate, so maybe this is doable.
Over the wall, Ivano waiting to place it down, 4 men strong. Realm Warp would get Tuesday there in a hurry. So it's a very risky dive for Winthrop to go through. They're going to back off, not try and challenge this one. Just grab the Scuttle Crab. You have 1:35 before the next Drake spawns.
Winthrop, they want to get back into the team fight zone right now. Apart from Bogged, of course. He's just going to be side lane the entire game. He actually delayed his hull breaker for a bit, so maybe I'm wrong about that one. Maybe he actually does want a team fight, but what's for sure is that Vex wants to. He is strong right now. He has his Kraken Slayer. He wants to be in the thick of things. He wants to be involved in the plays now. He's not that early game Jinx, just has, level 1 rockets not doing very much. He can crit you now. He can get that on-hit damage from Kraken Slayer, and Winthrop know this.
One attempted engage onto Frost Forest. A lot of damage onto Frost Forest. He's going to pop the ultimate and hop away. Over the wall goes Ivano, but Anori's going to chase him. Couple of damage, couple of shots, but Benji is going to be the superior. Takes down Ivano, gets chased down by the bear, and a double kill goes over to Vex. But a man drop as showing up late is going to be Dishao. He gets stunned up, but will not fall. Finally expiring, the shield gets busted through. Vex is going to take down Tuesday as well, getting a shutdown. We talked about mid-game Vex. It is online as he looks for just one more, but Hooks will escape. Goodness gracious, Winthrop. Goodness gracious, Bogged. It is a bloodbath.
That was exactly what Winthrop needed right there. They had a team fight for Vex, and they didn't have to bring Bogged either. He just got 3 kills and an assist on this Jinx, and bot lane turret, and mid lane turret. The Jinx is online. Look at that item right now. She has a Kraken Slayer. You're about to see a full second item completed. I'm 100% positive on this when he recalls and get back onto this rift and start attacking these Drakes as well. Bogged got that top lane turret too. Winthrop right back in that gold lead.
And Bogged, it felt like they had the right tools, but it didn't come together. They couldn't come together at the right time. Starting off that engage split while Winthrop had their unit completely whole. And, well, it results in Vex getting kill after kill after kill. He was well protected, well defended, and taking down Tuesday is a huge win for Winthrop. But it's not over just yet. Gold still relatively even, 18 minutes into this. It's only a kill lead, slight turret lead coming in for Winthrop as the dragon will be pulled. Bogged will fight with Winthrop this time, 5v5.
He's not going for Hullbreaker at all. They are potentially looking for this engage. Winthrop won it.
Ooh, Onslaught of Shadows stolen away. Honori has it. Jumping in is going to be
Vex.
Honori. Onslaught of Shadows not used yet. Vex goes down, though. And Winthrop, they don't have their ADC. The question is, do they need him? Alfano goes after Hooks. Deshao. Hooks slither remains, but they will fall. Or is that the case where Deshao jumps up in the air, gets put right down? A double kill coming in from Bud. And Winthrop, they lose Vex. We didn't need him. Ace.
They've got 2 crit marksmen on this team now that Mabud is into these team fights. Hullbreaker be damned, he's going for the double marksman style. As Vex, crucially in this team fight, does not have either summoner spell. He used them both in the last one. He does have a stopwatch, but they kill him with the crowd control chain too early and too fast for him to use it. But because Benji is a big part of that damage and he dives forward with Honori, they are in no man's land. They're in the melee range of both Ivano and Mabud, and they just take so much damage. All this front line is way too beefy in the back end as well, and Winthrop clean up that fight alongside getting the Drake that they wanted.
Smacks, I have to commend Ivano in that one. Even though the team fight was won and it was retreat, Ivano held on to the Onslaught of Shadows for the janitorial duty that made that a complete ace rather than just a 2 or 3 kill team fight win. Ivano finally online for this mid game.
Ooh, this is scary.
Attempted play coming out. Here comes the Solar Flare going golden. Vex, but the man drop on top of him. They're targeting Vex again. Deshao will take him down. 5 strong will be Bogged. And the counter engage comes through. Chris Bogged now taking the map.
Vex does use a stopwatch right there and the cleanse, but again, can't get out of it. 1 cleanse is not enough against this team. You're going to need at least 4 or 5 of those to survive. As Winthrop, they want to go forward into this jungle to deny any sort of Baron advance this early on. Bogged aren't actually doing it, though.
This is scary. This is where Bogged are strongest. If they're able to get together and get ready for that 5v5, their engage is devastating. Still, though, the rest of Winthrop have been responding accordingly. You know, the side lane pressure we saw earlier from Bud translated into the team fight, where Ivano has been taking the right ultimates to complement Winthrop's content. Now Deshao over on the spot side excellently dodges the mocking shout, but it's not enough, is it? No, Deshao takes him down. Undying Rage wasn't even burnt.
He thought that he had enough damage, but the Eclipse burst there in the shield and the damage completely swung the fight in the other direction. Mabud did not account for this. He does not cast his ultimate, and Deshao actually gets a solo kill in this matchup that Mabud had been winning in isolation up until this point. Really big deal for Deshao. He's going to be able to deal a lot of damage to that bot side turret. He doesn't have ult quite yet, so he can't actually take part in any team fight if it occurs, but Bogged feel really confident.
But Smacks, like, Deshao was 0-5 not
I
too
know.
long ago. He's picked up only 1 more death after that in 3 kills. He is coming back alive.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Deshao perform in these late game skirmishes and team fights. I mentioned it before, his flanks are superior to everyone so far in this tournament. It's been very impressive to see him come back from these deficits. And yeah, he's getting the deficits to begin with, right? His lane does leave something to be desired, but you see why he's on this team, and you can see that he is a huge asset in the later stages. I really appreciate that about him.
Now Bogged really trying to play with this fog of war. Bad times to take recalls. Can't keep the vision onto the control. Bad time at least for the vision control itself. You know, the resets are still needed. Now Deshao trying to hold off what's been going on with Mabud down here in the bottom lane as Mabud tries to continue the split push. We said it before, it does have that Gale Force, so it's a very sticky Tryndamere once he's able to get that mocking shout. But the burst damage to Deshao was immaculate in that last 1v1. Question is, can he do it again? There's Mabud on the case this time. Split push continues.
He's got his calculator out after that one, Mabud. He's got his I mean, they're college students, right? I'm sure he has one for a math class or something.
I mean, you don't see Pantheon enough too, so
yeah, true.
You need to pull up that LoL wiki and actually get those numbers.
Ooh, TP over to this Drake fight right now.
Ivano will join. 2 Drakes over to Winthrop thus far. This is a cloud map. First one to the punch is Winthrop. No contest coming out of Bogged. Just going to let that win condition be open for Winthrop. They have a lot of faith into their late game team fight. Winthrop are rotating towards the Baron side.
You know, typically I wouldn't care too much to give over these Cloud Drakes, but in a match that's very based around melee champions, it is a little bit more meaningful. So, Bogged giving that up, while it doesn't look that bad, eventually it can fully cascade on them into a full loss in this first game of the series.
Ooh, a snare and an attempted engage. Vex trying to get away, puts down the trap. Solar Flare is going to land. They pull Vex right back in. It's actually going to be Kenji, who's almost a sacrificial lamb. Will flash over the wall and stay alive. Takes one more chunk of damage. And Nori teasing if he's going to go for this engage. But Bogged pushing Winthrop out. Getting some vision control. But Winthrop, they still have a little bit left on the health bars. They can do a counter engage. Ultimates are available across the board minus Kenji.
This is really interesting. Mabud actually did attempt to make a move over to that team fight, not wanting to be left out of that one. He is a lot of damage. His build is very oriented on being a carnivorous Tryndamere rather than the herbivore turret-taking lumberjack Tryndamere build. He does want to actually be in these team fights rather than the 1v1. I mean, we just saw what happened the last time the 1v1 occurred, so just thinking about moving up there. And whether or not he was going to get there in time, he at least wanted to push the mid wave. So that turret in the bottom lane does still stand. Winthrop don't get a whole lot off of it. And crucially, once more, they do lose Vex's flash. He did flash over the wall to avoid that clever flank again for Bogged. So it is Bogged winning out on that play once more.
And Dishao has effectively been a neutralizer of Mabud as we head towards these late stages of the game. And what works so well with that is, you do have the man drop on Pantheon. So while teleport for neither top laners is a thing, you still have some map pressure that you can apply, and that's why Dishao leaves this lane, pushes it back out, deals with Mabud, and then heads towards the jungle and looks for a team fight to potentially break out.
Pantheon ultimate is extraordinarily useful. Not in the 1v1, though.
Yeah, not in the right place to be. Ooh. Good burst of damage comes through, but the Undying Rage is there, and the rest of Bog will be able to show up. Gonna be a top laner for top laner. Actually, Mabud lasting a little bit longer than expected. Does get taken down, but this is a response coming out of Winthrop as they head straight for the Baron. Jinx can melt it quite quickly, but Bogged are moving, and they're moving fast.
Yeah, Winthrop need to take this very, very quickly. Not only just because of the members arriving, but the Realm Warp and the Pantheon Ultimate will arrive eventually.
Here we go. Attempt against. Here comes the Realm Warp. It gets stolen away. Honori takes it. He takes the life of Vex as well. He will take the lives of Winthrop. Hooks over the wall. The follow through from Benji with the killer instinct as he goes after Avado. But Frost will slam down with the shutdown. Avado will follow through onto Hooks. And while it was almost disaster for Winthrop, an overcommittal from Bogged lose them their bot lane. However, still Baron achieved.
Too far from Benji and Hooks, but it's okay. Or is it?
Oh, it doesn't look like it's going to be okay in just a second. Frost is hunting him down. Take a bite out of Crime. Can he? Missing is Avado. Now you have to deal with Tuesday, and there's a lot of damage on that boy as he swipes onto Avado. Going after Frost Force. Goes Golden, says Nori. Tag you in, brother. It's your turn. A shutdown for Frost Forest as Bogged get the completion onto the jungler and the mid lane.
So much stasis here on both teams, saving the skin of their teeth right here as Winthrop, they try desperately to commit to this Baron, not accounting for the global movement of this Realm Warp, and this steal is beautiful. Let's watch this Baron HP and see the smite. 473 for Inori, and Winthrop is just a bit too late to the draw. I do really like the mechanical outplay from Avano here to survive this one. It's the stun off onto Benji, and then to counteract the burst damage from Kaisa as well. That stasis was beautiful.
Absolutely. Winthrop trying to make the best of what they could, but they didn't notice Tuesday. It's right there as he is now 10-3-5, has a death cap completed. Just one item shy of a complete build.
Not going for the tank rise at all. He wants to deal as much damage as possible. which is pretty funny considering he still has 3k HP. You wouldn't really know it just by looking at his health bar. But trust me, guys, he deals more damage than the usual Rise. And this Drake pit is where Winthrop want to stake their claim. They have 3 Drakes already to their name, and I already mentioned the added benefit on melee champions of having this Cloud Soul. They really do want this objective.
Right, you got a flank coming out from Dishao. Grabbing some of these fruits here is Ivano. Solar Flare stolen away. There's a counter engage and engage tool for Winthrop. Mabud will join for this fight. A 5v5 as Mabud pulls off towards Dishao. Gonna wail away onto Dishao before this fight even begins. Dishao's gonna go down, and now it's a 5v4. Can Bogged do it? Dragon goes down, stolen away. Dragon Soul not picked up by Winthrop. Out comes the Realm Warp, but Mabud is on the hunt. Will he get close enough for the shout? Answer's gonna be no. 2 down, top laner, and support fall for Bogged.
Okay, but Baron is out right now. After these recalls come through, it's canceled on the Tuesday as well. They can get more off of this Rift. There's an exhaust.
Oh, no flash. No flash for Benji. He goes down. Frost grabs it. Avano's going after Tuesday. Tuesday goes golden, but he's delaying the inevitable. A shutdown. Avano grabs it. And now the chase continues. Vex will gun onto Anori. Flash onto Anori. Beat Anori down. Bogged are falling apart, and Winthrop are doing the victory march in this game 1.
Pantheon ultimate in right now. Deserex, can he stop them? No, he can't even get his E off. And Winthrop are going to take the first game of this series in a back and forth bloodbath. It just took a few skirmishes at the very end, and Mabud keeps his perfect record on Tryndamere alive.
RMC! You hear that? Winthrop won game number 1. It's not a 2-0. And I mean, this is why I did believe in the squad quite a bit. You can point out that fact that Bogged did lose 3 bans, so that Tryndamere was available. It is something that Bogged have going for them. But overall, Winthrop played a fantastic back and forth game. They slugged it out pretty heavily with Bogged.
I really liked so many of the plays from both of these teams in this series, which is why I think this one is going to go the distance. You know, as much as I love Winthrop and as much as I'm supporting them right there with you, Deserex, I would not be surprised at all if Bogged kept this series interesting and did take game 2 off of that. I really, really liked the ferocity at which they kept trying these Rise Realm Warp attacks. And Anori, the Smite God in game 1.
The Smite God denied so much from Winthrop, just couldn't deny the win at the end of the day. On that note, we are going to take a moment to take a short break because I want to see game number 2, Smacks. I want to see game number 2 so bad. So when we return, the analyst desk will catch you up on that last game that just unfolded. Sure to watch more.